we'll start out here, where most of our clients end up. So I'll just show you now, if you're not already familiar with it, what it actually looks like in the platform once you've been using it for a while. And the example, since I'm doing the webinar, I also get to decide what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about games, and specifically football or soccer games, if you're an American. Now, I recently downloaded and played Dream League Soccer's 2017. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about that. But what you can see here is that I have created a watch list. You can also see up here in the sort of top panel that I have multiple different watch lists. I have one around shopping apps. I have one around Snapchat, which I was using when they were sort of fighting for an IPO, to try to see what are their competitors. And a watch list is, unless if you're not already familiar with it, effectively just a collection of apps that you care about. So in this case, I care about soccer or football games, and I'll just sort of walk you through the composition of that page so you're familiar with it. So we provide obviously downloads and revenues, and you can filter that information pretty much any way that you want. The default view is global and last calendar month, which is currently obviously April 2017. I'll just walk you through the logic of the metrics and the data that's provided. So here you have all the apps that I have on my watch list. And this is sort of a good way of getting data for both the Android and the iOS version of an app. Add both apps to a watch list. So you see both here, the FIFA Android and the FIFA Apple apps are already in here. If we move a little to the right, you'll see some turquoise boxes with a lock on it. This would indicate that all of the apps in my watch list are unlocked. I'll get back to that concept later. But because they're unlocked, I can explore different time periods, I can explore different countries, and export the data. So what the watch list allows you to do effectively is not just to benchmark performance between individual apps, but let's say that this is not the case, but let's say that I had actually added all the relevant apps to that watch list. Like the universe of relevant football games for me to analyze is this. The major advantage is then you'll actually have a total downloads for the entire list on top of individual downloads. So this is obviously the sum of the downloads for the games in on the list. That equals 100% share. You then have a growth indicator, and this is important because it's consistent throughout the platform. When you see growth denoted in red or green, red is obviously negative growth, green is positive growth, and it's always relative to the time period that you've selected. So right now we're looking at April, and the month over month, because I selected a month, growth of in the entire list is minus 5.1%. When you go into the individual titles, you can see why that is. You can see that every game, say for top 11 for iOS and FIFA Mobile Soccer, the Android version, have actually experienced negative growth in the last month. You can add revenue as well. Again, this is App Store revenue. To those of you who are not familiar with this, App Store revenue is generated through in-app purchase items or paid apps. The revenue that we display in the platform is after Apple has taken its 30% cut. So it's, in other words, it's what's paid out to the developer. And the same logic applies here. You will have obviously revenue numbers, share of the watch list, and also growth. So actually, while the entire growth in terms of downloads had a negative month-over-month growth, the revenue was positive, which obviously makes it a reasonably good story regardless. All of this information you can export to CSV and Excel over here. And like I said before, you can play around with the time period. This is where it becomes relevant whether or not you unlocked an app. If you have not unlocked an app, you will only be able to see global, last month download and revenue data for it. If you've unlocked it, you can see it for any of these time periods and even go a lot more granular as we're about to see now. You can also say, well, I specifically, because we're based here in Germany, want to understand the performance in Germany. So now what I'm looking at, the total would be total downloads on the list from Germany in the last 7 days, total revenue, again, in the last 7 days, and the growth now will be week over week because we selected the last 7 days. All right, that's pretty much sort of the concept of a watch list. You will see the ability to share. So if you want to collaborate with a colleague, if you're building a larger watch list, that's a really good idea. Once you select this option, and if you're on a paid account, you can add any user from your account or invite a new user to collaborate with you on your watch list. So if, for instance, you're a developer and you have all your competitors in that, then that would be a pretty awesome list to share with your fellow coworkers. Right, let's take a step further and actually look at sort of one of those specific apps. We could look at Dream League Soccer 2017, which we see here. It commands 6.2%, or 6% of downloads and on 2% of revenue in Germany. So it's a reasonable assumption that this game has other target markets. When I click an app, I will go to sort of the default download and revenue page of this app. And what you see here, once you've unlocked an app and you're on a paid plan, is actually a snapshot of performance by the key top countries. So you see here, Germany is not in top 5. Actually not in downloads, which is over here, or revenue, which is over here. But we see here a brief snapshot of the app's performance in April: 874,000 installs, 321,000 in revenue. Now, what I might want to be interested in here is understanding the performance in the United Kingdom. So if you see over here, the top countries in downloads are US, China, and United Kingdom. But the top countries in terms of revenue is United Kingdom, and it actually looks like the app is monetizing really, really well in that particular region. And maybe the thing I want to explore is like, how has that development come across? Like, how has that happened over time? If we scroll down, you have historical download and revenue trends. And here you can plot different countries or different statistics against each other. I'm going to now plot global against United Kingdom. Again, if you've unlocked an app in any of our plans, we have no tiering on countries. So once you unlock an app, we will show you our estimates for each of the countries that we cover and that the app is live in. I'm just going to take Germany anyway, just for the kick of it. When I reload, you'll now see trend lines for each metric that I've selected, which means download and revenue global, download and revenue Germany, download and revenue UK, each broken out on a daily basis. So you could say, for instance, you're really interested, let's do my birthday. That was the 30th of April. On the 30th of April, the total global downloads were 30,885. Revenue was 9,654, of which 1,646 came from the United Kingdom. You might want to explore this for all time since the app was launched, and actually a really good exercise to go through if you're looking at a competitor is to try to understand, or an investment object, what's the relationship between downloads and revenues since the launch of the game or since they've entered into a new market. If we'd selected some of the test markets here, we'd also have been seeing like the sequence of launches of this app as they were preparing for a global launch. This is available to export again if you wanted to sort of compare a trends analysis. So basically compare this data for Dream League Soccer with FIFA. You could do so in comparison, which I will jump over for now. But it's pretty straightforward. You select the metrics you care about, you select the time interval, and you select which type of sort of data or column, stacked bars, or line that you want to sort of see the data in. And then we display that, we make it available for you to export to CSV. But you also have a summary of it, of the time period you selected here. You can also do that custom. So you could say, well, I really care about the 12th of February, for instance. And then we will sort of provide, again, data from the 12th of February until, in this case, May 9th, i.e. yesterday, which brings me to another point that the data is obviously updated every single day. All right, so here you have the summary. Again, that's also obviously exportable to CSV. The next sort of button, this is great if you want to do a comparison of a few countries. This is absolutely the way that I would recommend for you to go about that. Normally, if you're trying to understand the composition of the business and the markets, you would want to go to the screen that we call country split. Country split has the same logic as you saw in watch lists. So here, the share is obviously the total global downloads in April. Let's actually just take Q1. So in Q1, you had 2.6 million downloads. That is obviously 100%. And the growth is 25%, which means the quarter-over-quarter growth of this app in terms of downloads was 25%. And then you effectively have a breakdown of the performance for each of the, let's see how many countries we have, 55, even down to Sri Lanka, where apparently 1,200 people at least have been playing Dream League Soccer on iOS. You can add the revenue as well. And one sort of concrete tip, if you will. So say that I'm a competitor to Dream League Soccer. One of the things that is really hard to come by in terms of intelligence on apps is market share, because most of our competitors as well are tiering on markets. So you'll only have a brief, like a small snapshot of information on where they're performing really well. Here you have the full overview, and one of the exercises you would definitely want to do is figure out, okay, they have a similar product to us. They're doing really well in, I don't know, Turkey. Let's just skip the United Kingdom. But the way that you want to do that is, for instance, you could try to figure out what is the download to revenue ratio by market. You could then compare that to a price per acquisition of users in said markets, and really try to understand what is actually an attractive opportunity for us relative to how our competitors are performing in markets where maybe we haven't even ventured into yet. I'll just briefly show the other data points that are available around any app that you unlock. So rank history provides a full overview of all the charts that the app has been ranked in, which in this case is quite a lot. This is for the US, it doesn't really matter, but we can see that on the 13th of August, 2016, the app was ranked 553 in iPhone US overall, 180 in games, 36 in simulation, and 23 in sports games. That's on download. You can also get that for top grossing. But if you're sort of obsessed with working with ranked data and ranked chart positions, this is obviously helpful for you. You can also get a full snapshot that is sort of similar to the country split, if you will, but quantified in the rank universe. So here you have May 9th, and you have a full overview of how many countries this app is ranking first in each of the categories where it can rank. And then actually here, a snapshot of the rank right now for in all of the countries that we cover, with an indication of jump in ranks recently. Right. That's pretty much it in terms of the information that's available at the individual app level in App Intelligence. We also have app information. This is obviously taken from the store. You have a little more data in here than you would have in the iTunes App Store, because we pulled in some more release notes, etc. But this is more for if you don't know the game, or you're trying to understand what's this about, what does it offer, it can be a helpful resource. But I'm showing it last because I think it actually should be. It's not proprietary, if you will. Okay, so as you saw before, we have this in watch lists, and the watch list, just to conclude with saying a bit more about that, is again where it's our attempt to make the whole platform more personal for you. And one of the things that we've recently started doing, in addition to just having the data in there, is to start feeding you information also when you're not in the platform. So you'll see notification settings on every watch list that you build. If you enable this, you will receive a weekly digest. This is sort of, I think it comes out on Friday around 1 p.m. CET, 2 p.m. CET. But then a new thing we have is daily alerts. So this is actually a daily email that is sent to you if an app jumps 5 positions in ranks within a category, or if they launch a new version, if they go to a new country. Think of this as a first step, and that the next step inevitably will be that you can specify what you want, when you want to be notified about a particular app, if you don't want to log into the platform every single day. Right. So much about the app intelligence and watch lists. If there are there any questions that I need to address around that? Not really. Okay. So this, like I said again, app intelligence is available in all our app intelligence plans, and there's no difference. Like even if you're on the cheapest plan that we have, we still give you all the information that we have for the apps that you unlock. So that's important to emphasize. But let's talk about sort of like the wider market, because this is maybe just the top 5 games per platform that I know top of mind. There might be, and there probably is, a lot more apps or games out there that could be interesting to me as a developer, or even if I'm trying to do market level analysis. So I'm now going to venture into the component of our offering that we call market intelligence. It's found over here. It has 2 components. Top app charts is effectively top charts from the stores. So as you may be familiar with, and you probably are, the app stores provide a top free, top paid, top grossing for any category across all countries. We also provide that, but that's only publicly available data. So you can go there and you can figure out, just show you that briefly. And we'll just take the default view from top charts. So here, this is for the US. You can see, okay, US overall, iPhone, May 9th. Here you have the sort of the average rank of the apps on that particular day. This can also be used for discovery if you want. So if you wanted to see, for instance, in the sports category, what other soccer games are in there, you can obviously do that. And then directly from this interface, unlock an app and add it to your watch list that you're building. You can also build a new watch list directly from this. Now, but what I want to show you is custom market reports, because the thing that most of the clients that we work with care about is not the rank position, but rather, what does that actually mean? What does it mean that Heads Up is ranked 4th versus in Light, which is ranked 8th in this particular category? So let me then introduce what we call custom markets reports. This is available in the Expand plan and up. And what it is it's a filtering tool that can solve a lot of different use cases if you know how to. And hopefully I'll be able to show you some of them now. So the most typical exercise, now before you were looking at the sports games apps, the soccer games, let's just stick with that for now. The most frequently asked questions is effectively about App Store top charts. How many installs do I need to get into a particular position in a particular category? And so what you're looking at here is effectively an unfiltered approach. So you have 4.489 million apps. This is a number of apps that we have data for. They're obviously not all relevant, particularly not if you're looking at sports apps. So what you can do is here, you can say, okay, well, let's start out with iOS. So I'll take Apple App Store, and then let's find the sports game. So that's the native App Store category of sports games I'm now selecting. What you'll see is that the number of apps that the analysis return is significantly smaller. We're only now looking at 22,727. They're still here ranked on downloads. You can also sort it on revenue if you want to, so you get top grossing charts basically. But let's narrow it down further, because we're effectively trying to understand how we can make soccer a more popular game in the US, or rather what we're competing against. So if I go to country and download ranges, I can select the country. I'm doing that now. So here we have the US, and what you're seeing now is the roughly 10,000 apps that are available to US consumers. We might want to narrow that down a little further, so I'll say iPhone only, and then we can even say, well, actually we care only about free apps. So again, you'll see that for each of these selections that I make, we narrow down the number of apps and thereby get closer to obviously the relevant market for us. So what we wanted to understand here is, okay, well, what does it take to rank, let's say 10th in the US in the sports games category on iOS? We're looking at a month right now. You can change that time period if you want to. And you'll see here that the most downloaded app, maybe not too surprising, is a baseball app from Glue Games with 2.7 million installs in that particular category. You can also see that it grew by 2.5 million, indicating that it's a very new app. These numbers are obviously for the US, and the 20.3 million is the total number of downloads for sports games in the US in April. If we scroll down, we'll find that the app that is currently ranked 10th is also a baseball app with 214,000 installs. Now, what you would want to do then, now, if you said, well, that is the goal, and we don't care if it's realistic or not, is you would say, okay, if we need to drive 214,000 installs over the course of a month, what is then the daily average? So that's effectively just 214,000 divided by 30. And then from that, you can start really planning out your media strategy. You have a rough understanding of how many installs you need to drive. You probably have a pretty good understanding of where you're good at acquiring users. We'll talk about ASO later, but this is typically a starting point for this. So that is effectively using custom market reports to quantify an argument, if you will. It's obviously also, you can see how you rank versus other players and what the difference is between you. Actually here we see Dream League Soccer, the game that we were analyzing before. So it's only around 60,000 downloads short of reaching the position that I think it should have. Now, one of the things that the app stores are often being criticized for is the inability to reflect the level of diversification in the universe of apps that is in there. And this obviously comes down to these native app store categories, of which there can only be, around 60 across the two platforms. One of the things that we've done a lot of work around, and this is primarily because we had a lot of management consultancy clients who don't care about app stores and categories. They care about super niche BMX games, or they care about ovulation tracker apps. So one way we've identified a way for you to provide sort of a more niche level analysis is by entering keywords. And what entering keywords here means is you are effectively querying the App Store descriptions of all of the apps in your selection. So right now, you'd be querying each of these 7,316 apps. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the word soccer. You're seeing this is a US. And when I add that as a criteria, it'll take away all apps that do not have soccer in the App Store description, which means we're now down to 724 apps. And you can see here that the total downloads now is 2.2 million. You obviously have the games below here. What this means is it allows us to quantify the niche market. So we can say now that the total sports games category equals around 20 million downloads a month in the US, of which 10% go to soccer games, of which actually pretty almost precisely 10% go to the market leader FIFA Mobile Soccer. And this gives us an opportunity to quantify the argument, figure out what the market potential is. You could do this for the US, or I could release that restriction and we could look at this globally. But it also helps understand out of our market, how big of a share we actually commanding at the moment. And again, if you then went, well, let me see, Head Soccer is definitely a relevant title that should be added to my watch list. I'm going to do that right here. So like that, it's now added to my watch list, and I'm thereby sort of obviously building out that market. That is, that's effectively sort of like the two sort of key components in this that I would want to highlight. Those are two sort of very app developer-centric models, but you can obviously also use that if you're trying to solve some questions for a client who's wondering whether there's even a market opportunity in X, Y, Z. An additional thing that you might want to look at, and this is typically something that our market leaders are doing, is they want to see, okay, but what are new games or apps that are coming into our category on a weekly basis that we should really care about. So everything in the custom market reports right now works as an AND logic, which means that what we're looking at right now is apps that are available in the US and our iOS, Apple App Store apps, and their sports games category, and their iPhone, and they're free. Now, maybe what we wanted to do here was like loosen that up a bit and just look at soccer apps in the US iOS App Store. So I'll remove sports, iPhone, and free. And obviously that brings us to a much larger number, so 3,012. And then rather, and you can see the YouTube is optimizing for this, and then rather than looking at the top apps, we're gonna add a filter which is called release date. And we're gonna say, okay, well, let's actually take the last 30 days. So apps are launched within the last 30 days, and then take the correlating time period. So we also have data for the last 30 days. And here you have it. This is the 64 apps that were launched in the iOS App Store that have soccer in the App Store description in the last 30 days. So you have Ronaldo, which I assume is a spin on Ronaldo. And again, actually what often happens is that you build a new watch list around newcomers. So keep it like soccer apps to keep a look on or keep keep analyzing. And then again, obviously this is information you can get straight in your inbox every single day. That's pretty much it for market intelligence. There is, as you can probably also see, a lot of different use cases. You can also add parameters. So right now we say last 30 days US Apple App Store soccer games, but you can say, well, we only want to see those that have more than 5,000 installs. So out of the 3,000 apps that mapped, only 166 actually have that. You can always export the top 250 results that you have, and obviously manipulate the data separately. But again, this is sort of the most frequent uses of custom market reports. One is trying to figure out, okay, and quantify arguments around your chart position. How much does it take to get into a particular spot? How many more downloads or how much more revenue are competitors driving qua their App Store rank, which is obviously better than ours. What are the new apps that are coming into the market? What do they look like? And again, how do we like narrow down our analysis so that it reflects the niche that we're actually competing in rather than the overall App Store? Right, that is market intelligence. Are there any questions I should address? No questions that I should address. All right, very cool. All right, maybe sort of one additional note then, and excuse me if you are not in the business of selling to developers. A lot of people are, and you can obviously use this tool for lead generation as well, as it should be pretty obvious by now. If you are, well, either if you're selling to developers or if you're a developer who care more about the company behind an app than the app itself, you can obviously leverage our electronic arts, sort of our publisher view lookup. So you can see under each app, there's a grayed out name, that is the name of the publisher. When you go to the publisher profile, if you have that access level, you'll see a publisher portfolio overview, headquarters US, total of 80 apps. This is electronic arts, average rating, and then you can see here, okay, well, what is the distribution of downloads across the entire portfolio of this publisher? What is the distribution of revenue across the portfolio? And when was the last time they launched a game? So you can sort of rank on first track, which particularly large, very large game publishers typically want to do with their competitors, so they can keep track of new stuff that just came out. In this case, the most recent game from EA is Mass Effect Andromeda Apex HQ, which I have no idea what does. Yeah, if you have this is available in the lead plan, and if you have access to publisher intelligence, you can look up any publisher. Obviously, the most frequent way of finding an app is up here. So here you can search for Rovio, for instance. You would then both get apps that map to Rovio, and obviously, in this case, more familiar publisher names as well. Great. So if I just backtrack a little bit and sort of try to catch up on what we talked about so far, you have App Intelligence, where you go in and you analyze the performance of an individual app, whether it's performing across different countries on a daily download on a revenue or rating rank data estimate. That is one way of getting the data and one way of consuming the data in the platform, and that's available already in what we call the launch plan, where you get 10 apps where you can get all this information for. Then there's publisher information if you want to look at the company behind it, which is what I'm looking at right now. And then obviously there's market intelligence, which is this custom market report that is available in our expand plan. Yeah, so again, these are plans that can be purchased online, or you can reach out to us if you have questions in advance of doing so. Excuse me. If there aren't any questions at this point, it would be great to know if there is, because this is sort of like the core in our App Intelligence offering and in our market intelligence offering. And for most clients, that's what's relevant. That's what they come to us to buy. Some are interested in App Store optimization and keyword intelligence as well. And but I want to give the ones that are not interested in that the opportunity to leave the webinar and go spend time with your kids or colleagues or go for a jog, because we're going to transcend into talking about keyword intelligence now. And like I said, again, if you're not a developer or someone trying to understand how many users are searching for tennis balls in the App Store, this is not as relevant for you. So if you leave, thank you very much for joining. We appreciate that. If not, then buckle up, because we're going into keyword intelligence. Were there any questions that I missed?
Not that I can see, but that doesn't mean much because
You're not logged in.
Well, yeah, I'm logged in, but I'm not logged in. I can't see who's here.
Oh, you can't see who's here. But can you see if anyone has questions on the chat?
Presumably, yes.
Oh, that's great. I mean, if you have a question and Ben has not gotten back to you, just unmute yourself and shout it out loud, and we'll take it from there. All right. Let's do the following. Let's actually focus on one of the games that we've already looked at, just for consistency. So if I go back to my watch lists, and we go into, just go back to the good old football example for soccer. It's not called football, it's called soccer in the US. All right, and we take, let's take the Dream League Soccer for Android. When you hover over, you'll see that there are different options, different sort of things you can go into in analyzing. What I want to go into now is keyword ranking. So ASO, for people who are not familiar with it, would probably left the conversation right now, but it is sort of a way to figure out, okay, how can we drive more installs organically, so without paying for it, by optimizing and making sure that we're using and ranking for the right keywords. So there are different components to the ASO offer. One is keyword rank. That's the one you're looking at right now. And this is where you would typically spend time if you want to look at an individual app, be that your own app or a competitor. So what you see here is historic rank for the keyword US soccer. It's gone up to 1, but mostly this app is ranked in 2nd. And down here, you will see an overview of each of the keywords that the app actually ranks for. So you can then track each of these keywords. And when you track a keyword, you will unlock the following. And let's start with Dream League Soccer. So Dream League Soccer is a more generic title, but it obviously refers to this or the older version of this game. So you have a search popularity, which is 55. This is from 1 to 100, with 55 being in the middle, not bad for a brand. That is not that substantial, but also not particularly high. An indication of consumer interest. And to put that into context, In the US, which is, sorry, this is the market we're looking at right now. In the US, Snapchat and Instagram are around 100. I think Google is 89, and so is Tinder, by the way. Dream League Soccer is 55. Competition indicates how hard it is to rank in the top 10 for that keyword. Competition score is determined on the basis of the level of fluctuation in the top 10. So, how frequently do new games enter the top 10? It is also determined by how many downloads the games in that top 10 have. So, if it's large titles, it makes it harder to actually go in and rank the top 10 for the same keywords as they do. Rank here means the current rank of this game for this keyword. So obviously it's ranked first. Share of apps keyword downloads means that 15.6% or 315 downloads on a daily basis come from users in the US searching for Dream League Soccer. If I just segue into the other branded title here, I can sort of rank on downloads. So Dream League Soccer 2017, which is the actual title, you'll see a higher search popularity, slightly higher also competition, but also significantly more, 3 times more downloads from this keyword. This would total 100. So once you unlocked or sort of tracked all the keywords here, you would have a total of 100. So this really gives you an understanding of, okay, what is the distribution between downloads coming from branded search versus generic search? And are there keywords that some of our competitors are ranking for that maybe we should actually rank for? For instance, if we go to soccer games here, you would see that soccer games has a search popularity of 74, which is obviously really, really high. And that it has a higher competition than soccer, which means that it actually might sense to go for soccer instead, depending obviously on your product. You can also see that this app is, our estimates are 2.9% and 2.3% respectively of its downloads coming from these two very generic search terms. So that's almost 100, that's a little over 100 installs per day just from these two keywords. So once you've sort of unlocked an app, you can go in here, you can track the keywords that you're interested in. If you don't find them, you can also add them here. So for instance, I want to see how Dream League Soccer ranks for my name, which is Anas. I can add it. We will then actually hold the information, historic information for the keyword enders, and provide that in the platform within 24 hours. So you can see right now it's fetching data. When you come back tomorrow, and I'm sure you all will, to see how Dream League Soccer ranks for Anas, you'll probably see that it doesn't, but there will be data for it. This is the individual app level. The other component I want to show you is the Keyword Explorer. In the Keyword Explorer, you could do exactly what you would think. So you could say, well, actually, I think soccer games is the word that we want to have a better understanding of. Already up here, you can see which apps are ranking for it, but you can get that much more elaborate here. So Keyword Explorer, let's stick with Android. In the US, if I type soccer, you will then see almost live feed of apps that rank for this particular keyword. Again, you have the search popularity, you have the competition score, and you have the total downloads for this keyword. So our estimate is that roughly 1,000 downloads per day or 30,000 downloads per day per month on Android or Google Play in the US come following search for soccer. You'll obviously see as well the apps that are ranking for that particular keyword right now, and you can track them to see the keyword download estimates and the share of the market underneath. The suggestions you see, and this is obviously where it becomes very actionable, would be other keywords that apps in the top 100 or however many results are being displayed. That depends on the platform. What are the keywords they're ranking for? And this is really a good place for you to explore, okay, is there an opportunity here? Are there new keywords with high search popularity and reasonably low competition score that we should try to rank for given current trends and download volume? That's pretty much it. Again, you can type in any keywords. You can search for iOS or Android. We have 18 countries available. You can break out iPhone and iPad for iOS, and obviously export the results. Any questions? No? You think there are no questions?
Well, we need to perfect the webinar for that. I'm not sure that.
All right. Okay, so I just want to, I'm going to just go ahead and make sure that we are actually getting questions through. I think we are. Anyone who has questions and they feel that they've not been listened to so far should feel free to, could you filter all the publishers' apps from beginning of the enterprise and publishers to, yes, you can. You can. So actually I can show that as well. This is Ida Schonen. And Deanne, you also had a question, not really related to the keywords. Can I unlock an app after unlocking it? Can you unlock an app? That's a good way to phrase it. So Deanne, I'll answer your question first. When you unlock an app in our platform, it is unlocked for the billing cycle, which is always 1 month. Within that billing cycle, you can lock it again and free up space for new ones. So if you're in a plan with 50 apps that you can unlock, you can effectively change which 50 apps that you monitor by the end of your billing cycle. The billing cycle starts the day that you open your paid account. I hope that answers your questions, Deanne. And for Ido, so yes, you can. I think I did it as well. Cool. You can, and the way you would do that is, I think I did it as well. So you can effectively here, you can sort on first track, and then there's an export here for exporting the information if you want to. Yes, as actually for Ido, just for you, in the interest of showing you some additional information around publishers, you actually don't have to use the custom market reports for apps. You can also use it for publishers instead. So for instance, if you were trying to understand which publishers are doing a lot on education on iOS, you would want to add those 2 filters, and then here you have them ranked on downloads and revenue, etc. In addition, you can actually also, I'm just going to highlight this one feature. This is probably not relevant to those of you who are not trying to understand publisher performance. You can actually also say, I want to see all publishers, but only those that are based in Denmark. So really a business development tool that is also available. So here you see, this is Kaloo, this is the company behind Subway Surfers, Lego System, probably known to all of you, and then pretty much that's it for my country. There are no successful app developers at all. Okay, I think that's it. And so I actually want to make sure that we provide you with like a proper thank you for joining the webinar. I know that I often don't join the webinar that I sign up for, and I hope you feel that it was a good use of your time, because that's really important to us. If you have feedback, feel free to submit it. You can do that directly to me if you want, anders@prioridata.com. If not, and if you're interested in learning more, get in touch with us via website chat or my email, or even just sales@prioridata.com.